So I saw something as I was just on Facebook, and it really made me think of something I'd actually really like to touch on because I feel like a lot of people struggle with this as well. So let's dive right in. You can pause to read this, but yeah, just pause to read. That basically said, for those who didn't want to pause to read, that you're too busy for church, and comparing it to, sitting home. People sit home and watch Netflix more than they go to church, and that people's priorities are not in the right spot. And when you say, oh, I'm too busy, you're not actually too busy to go to church. Now, being somebody that does enjoy rarely going to church, but also being the Christian that I love God, and I find him being in more places than just church. I find him when I'm just walking around the house cleaning. Or I personally feel like I'm closer to God when I am listening to a worship song and singing and belting at the top of my lungs while I'm at home. I feel like I get more out of it in that area versus being in a church environment. One of the comments did say something about being church hurt, which has happened to me. He had requested that I stop going because the parents had mentioned that they didn't want me around their kids. Just because I was living a sinful life and I was still going to church, they still didn't want me around their kids being a bad influence. Which, that being said, that kind of ruined me from churches. And I'm not saying that, I will never go to church again or that I don't believe church is a good thing. I think a lot of people that struggle in their everyday life or struggle with sin and feeling that pressure, I feel like a lot of people in those situations, like myself, they don't feel comfortable in those environments. Not because they feel guilty, not because they are like, oh, well, God's gonna judge me because I'm in his house. No, they go to church because they know that's where they need to be. But the people within that church that are supposed to be Christians, those people are supposed to want them to be there. Those people are supposed to encourage them to be there. But I have talked to more than just one person, and more than myself I know of, that have experienced that same kind of behavior from Christians. And I'm not saying it's all Christians, I'm not. All I'm saying is that the judgment that you receive from Christians is more judgment than you'll ever get from the feeling that you get from God. The feeling you get when you do something sinful, and you get that feeling of judgment from God, versus the feeling that you get when you walk into a church and you feel people's eyes on you and they know what you've done. That's a totally different kind of judgment, and it hurts.